You know that feeling when a new cozy game gets announced and it's just another pastel-colored farming simulator where everyone's emotionally stable and the biggest conflict is helping Greg find his missing turnip? It's always move to small town, grow parsnips, romance emotionally unavailable carpenter, and ancient mystery nobody talks about for some reason. Yeah, I'm tired. But lately, it feels like cozy games are terrified of having an actual personality. Everything's soft, pretty colors, low stakes, emotional safety, and designed to make you feel like you have been swaddled. And there's nothing wrong with that every once in a while. I've made a video like this in the past that got a bunch of love, so today I wanted to talk about 6 more upcoming or currently available cozy games that are doing something different. These games still have farming, decorating, fishing, relationships, all of the cozy comfort mechanics. But underneath all of that, there's horror, mystery, survival mechanics, cult vibes, murder investigations, economic collapse, and more. You know, self-care. And honestly, these are some of the most interesting games I've seen in a while, so let's get started. Hi gamers, it's your host Stormy, and number 1 on this list is going to be Village in the Shade. This game immediately caught my attention because it looks beautiful in the most suspicious way possible. This game seems to be flying extremely far under the radar, and I am happy to give it some attention today. Village in the Shade is set to release on July 29th, coming to Nintendo Switch 1 and 2, PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. This entire game has a soft, hand-painted art style with cozy Japanese mountain vibes. Cherry blossoms drifting through the air, little streams running through town, warm lantern lighting at night, the kind of atmosphere that makes you think, wow, something terrible definitely happened here. You move to a secluded village, and on paper, it sounds like your standard relaxing farming sim. You plant crops, customize your home, gather resources, craft furniture and fences, meet the locals, attend seasonal festivals. All the cozy staples are here. This game specifically mentions things like summer festivals and cherry blossom viewing parties where you can bond with the townspeople. There's fishing, wandering around town, relaxing by the brook. It wants you to really settle into village life. But then the game casually drops 3 rules on you. Do not talk to strangers, do not leave the village, and do not go out at night. Okay, great, totally normal farming community behavior here. And visually, the game looks incredible. The hand-painted environments genuinely stand out in a genre where a lot of games kind of blend together aesthetically. It feels cozy in a way that's almost dangerous. Like the village is trying really hard to make sure you stay comfortable enough to stop asking questions. And historically speaking, that's never gone badly. At number 2, we have Moonlight Peaks. This is certainly not the first time you were hearing about this title, as it has been in the making for a long time, and they seem to have an excellent marketing team because this game is on everyone's wish list that I know, and it is finally set to release on July 7th, which just so happens to be my birthday, happy birthday to me, on Nintendo Switch 1 and 2 and PC. You play as a vampire moving into your family's abandoned homestead in a supernatural town filled with werewolves, witches, and other magical creatures, which already sounds way more entertaining than another farming town populated entirely by people named Eli and Martha. Your character is trying to prove to their skeptical vampire father that compassion and peaceful living are possible, even for vampires. So instead of terrorizing villagers or drinking blood in alleyways like a responsible immortal, you're farming magical crops and decorating a gothic cottage. The farming itself sounds really unique too because the crops and the livestock are all supernatural as well. The game leans fully into the fantasy aesthetic instead of just being a normal farming sim with vampires awkwardly taped onto it. You can study witchcraft and potion making, which unlocks spells that help with the farming and exploration, and apparently your vampire abilities let you shapeshift into different forms and explore areas around town. which immediately makes traveling way more interesting than just slowly jogging everywhere at 2 a.m. because you forgot to sell your potatoes. There's also a ton of side activities beyond farming. Fishing, foraging, embroidery, flower arranging, card collecting. Honestly, this vampire has more hobbies than I do. The game also has around 24 romanceable characters, which means the developers clearly understand exactly what happens when you put attractive supernatural beings in front of cozy gamers. People are going to lose their minds over this game if they have not already, and visually it absolutely nails the cozy gothic vibe. Everything has a soft, spooky aesthetic. It's spooky, yes, but comforting. What I appreciate the most, though, is that Moonlight Peaks doesn't seem embarrassed by its own aesthetic. It fully commits to the drama and the fantasy of being an immortal magical creature, and I think more games need to stop being afraid of being theatrical. If I'm playing as a vampire, I want maximum vampiric activities while harvesting enchanted pumpkins. That is the experience that I paid for. At number 3, we have Welcome to Elderfield. We are making a sharp left turn with this one, okay? This one feels deeply cursed, but in a good way. Welcome to Elderfield does not seem to have an official release date yet, but instead is in coming soon status. I put this one on the list because it obviously is leaning much more into the dark and twisted instead of cozy, but it's still following the cozy formula, if you will, perhaps with just a few extra dashes of agony and despair. Welcome to Elderfield starts you with finishing school and suddenly having way too much free time in a secluded town where absolutely nothing is normal. The townspeople are strange, creatures move through darkness at night, the local news reports are increasingly concerning, and the game casually mentions things like bespeeching the old gods alongside fishing and cooking, which is honestly the exact energy I am looking for in a game. You can farm, raise animals, cook meals, forage, mine for resources, and fight monsters and bosses. Unlike most cozy games, Elderfield feels very dangerous. There's this constant feeling that the world is actively hostile towards you. Even the sleep mechanic is unsettling because the game says you can technically explore endlessly or choose to sleep when and if at all, which implies that there may be consequences for sleeping or consequences for not sleeping. Either way, my cortisol levels have increased. The game also has randomly generated mines and dungeons with shifting layouts, which adds replayability and unpredictability. One of the first major dungeon areas in the demo is an abandoned mall, and I'm sorry, abandoned malls are inherently horror environments. The final game is expected to have more than 3 times the town size and at least 2 more major dungeon areas, with multiple levels to each of those areas. The final game will also include new features such as old god alignment, calendar-based events, quality of life features, and much more of everything that is already in the demo. The demo itself is said to represent roughly 1/6 of the planned finished game. The town itself also sounds incredibly dynamic. NPCs have their own schedule, you can build friendships through gifts and tasks, and there's randomized loot and material spawning throughout the world. The biggest thing here is the atmosphere. Elderfield feels oppressive in a really intentional way. The pale moon imagery, old gods, isolated town setting, shadowy creatures, it feels like cosmic horror disguised as a farming sim. It's like someone looked at Stardew Valley and said, what if Pelican Town was haunted by ancient unknown entities? And honestly, finally. At number 4, we have Grimshshire. Grimshshire is currently available on PC with a nice, juicy, overwhelmingly positive review score, which is respectable to say the least with over 2,000 reviews. You escape your destroyed hometown and end up in an isolated mountain village where a plague is rapidly approaching, which means unlike most farming sims where you're just trying to maximize profits and marry the local baker, this game is genuinely about survival. The farming mechanics are actually surprisingly deep, too. You grow crops, plant orchards, raise animals, gather herbs, berries, fishing, but the food preservation is a huge mechanic. You have to salt, pickle, dry, and smoke food to prevent it from rotting away. That immediately makes the world feel more grounded. Most farming sims basically operate on cartoon logic where vegetables exist forever in a magical wooden chest. Meanwhile, Grimshshire is like, no bestie, your potatoes are molding, people are starving, figure it out. The game also emphasizes balancing the dietary needs of the town, including both herbivores and carnivores, which is a really interesting detail. You're not just farming for yourself, you're responsible for an entire community surviving winter and disease outbreaks. There's also village building mechanics where you contribute materials to community projects, donate research specimens to discover survival methods, and strengthen the settlement together. The game straight up warns you not to get too attached to villagers because not everyone survives, which is emotionally violent for a game that also lets me decorate fences. I do really like that balance though. Grimshshire seems to heavily focus on the emotional weight of community. A lot of cozy games make towns feel weirdly static. Nobody changes, nobody struggles, nothing truly bad happens. But Grimshshire feels like your choices and preparation actually matter. If you fail, people suffer, and somehow that makes the cozy moments feel more meaningful. The visuals are gorgeous and comparable to Stardew Valley, just bleaker. Dynamic weather, changing seasons, cozy mountain village aesthetics, the game does look warm and inviting despite the constant looming threat of plague, which sounds exactly like real life lately, but let's not get into that. Next, we have Critterville Goes Bankrupt. This game really intrigues me, and I have not seen a ton of coverage on this one. Critterville Goes Bankrupt does not seem to have an official release date yet, but is instead in coming soon status. At first glance, this game looks adorable. Tiny woodland creatures, elegant little outfits, charming countryside aesthetics. The art style does remind me of maybe Coral Island or even Palia, which people are going to either love or hate. Once you get into the game though, you realize it's basically about late-stage capitalism. It's as if Animal Crossing had a capitalist overlord stealing every nickel and dime from you and... Wait a minute. You inherit control over a town that's collapsing financially during an industrial revolution, and now you're responsible for rebuilding the economy however you want, which includes things like opening businesses, creating jobs, holding bake sales, raising taxes, suppressing labor strikes. Again, very cozy. What makes this game stand out is how reactive it sounds. The developers mention this domino system where the town folk dynamically respond to your choices. So if you forget somebody's birthday, they might literally sue you. And if you spread ghost stories, rumors spread through the town that the place is haunted. Characters remember things, react unpredictably, and the town evolves around your behavior, which sounds so much more interesting than NPCs who just repeat the same 4 dialogue options forever while staring directly into space. You can be compassionate and community-focused, or you can become an absolute robber exploiting woodland creatures for profit. There's also romance, estate customizations, farming, minigames, exploring, letter writing. There's a ridiculous amount apparently packed into this game. It's up to you to rebuild the town's economy, start a thriving business, and employ your best friends, bribe the mayor, open a mine, rebuild the town through your generous donations, quell labor strikes. How you bring riches to Critterville matters, and the critter folk will be sure to let you know. And nothing says cozy gaming quite like aggressively union busting a family of rabbits. This one is dark and disturbing in a way that is a little bit too close to home, if you ask me. And last on our list is Grave Seasons. Okay, this is another one that you surely have heard of once or twice. People are going insane over this title. Grave Seasons is set to release very soon on August 14th on Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo Switch, and PC. This game comes from Blumhouse Games, which both intrigues me and concerns me a little bit. If you know anything about Jason Blumhouse, you know that you don't really know what to expect with him. This might genuinely be one of the best concepts for a farming sim that I've seen in a long time. You escape from jail and start over in a peaceful town called Ashen Ridge, trying to build a quiet farming life for yourself. And then people start getting murdered by a supernatural serial killer. Very casual. So while you're growing crops, fishing, mining, and selling goods around town, you are also investigating murders and trying to figure out which townsperson is secretly killing people. And apparently the killer can change depending on the playthrough, which is a smart idea because it keeps the mystery fresh and makes every interaction feel suspicious. The game heavily focuses on investigations too. You gather clues, break into houses, build trust with townspeople, complete quests, and try to predict future victims before they die, which means relationship building suddenly became way more tense. Because in most cozy games, befriending villagers just unlocks recipes and cutscenes. In grave seasons, befriending villagers might stop them from getting dismembered, which I would say makes the stakes just a little bit higher. The game also mentions crafting protective items to defend against whatever supernatural force is stalking the town, so there's survival horror elements mixed into the farming mechanics, which sounds great. And yes, you can romance characters, including the potential killer, because again, game developers understand their audience frighteningly well at this point. I also think the setup of you being an escaped prisoner is really interesting because it automatically makes your character morally complicated. You're not the classic, wholesome, chosen one hero. You're already someone with a questionable past trying to survive in a town where everybody has secrets. This is such a good foundation for a darker narrative-driven farming sim. And honestly, this game feels like a perfect example of what the cozy genre needs more of. Actual tension, actual mystery, actual risk. Not just infinite turnips and emotional support chickens. And that concludes our list for today. Honestly, all 6 of these games feel like developers finally realizing cozy games don't have to be emotionally sterile to be relaxing. You can have comfort and horror at the same time. You can have farming mechanics and existential dread. In fact, I'd argue that dread is what makes the farming more immersive. If you know any other upcoming dark, cozy games I should check out, leave them in the comments because apparently my ideal gaming experience now is peaceful domestic duties under horrifying circumstances. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed your time here and want to see more gaming coverage. As always, thank you all so much for the endless support. Consider sticking around to the end of the video to discover more list videos, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!